Thanks again so much for joining us, everyone, for today's webinar, Delivering Security Fundamentals with NinjaOne. In this webinar, we're intending to cover sort of how you can deliver the baselines of security with the tools that you already have. And our focus is going to be on using NinjaOne to do that. But you should be able to take a lot of what we talk about and a lot of what we say and apply it to other tools that you might have. If you're a current Ninja partner, obviously the hope is you can use Ninja to do that. If you're not, you can hopefully take what we'll be talking about and use your tools as they exist today to actually deliver on those security fundamentals. We do like our webinars to be as interactive as possible, so please stay active in chat, ask questions, share your tips, tricks, best practices with each other. We had some really good interaction this morning where we had some of our partners even telling us better ways to do things, which is always nice. And if you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A. There is a vote function in Q&A, so once you put them in, people can upvote them to say that they're the most important, and we'll go through that list at the end and try to answer them all for you. A few housekeeping items. The first is this webinar is being recorded, so you will have access to this after the fact, and we will send it out. It usually takes a couple days to a week to send out, so you won't have it today, but look for that email from Ninja to get the recording, and you can share it with anyone you'd like. And we are giving away a gift card at the end of the session today. So after we've wrapped up the content and before the Q&A, we will announce that $100 gift card winner. With that, I think we can go ahead and jump in and introduce today's speakers. My name is Pete Breton. I'm the Director of Customer and Product Marketing here at Ninja, and I'm joined by AJ and Jeff.
Hey, guys. Nice to meet you all.
Hey, everyone. Good to hear from you.
We all introduce ourselves differently each time. We do have some slides at the beginning of the webinar here. I'll jump over to the agenda. I do promise, thank you, Christine. I do promise not to bore you with too many PowerPoint slides here, but we do have some slides to go through at the beginning because we want to talk about what we mean by the fundamentals of endpoint security and why we're talking about that today. We're going to then jump into the importance of a layered security approach to endpoint security. And then finally, from a slide perspective, how to use your existing tools to deliver security fundamentals. The second 2/3 of the webinar, I hope, will be showing you some of this stuff in action, how to actually take what we're talking about at the beginning of the webinar and apply them in real life using NinjaOne. So without further ado, I think we can just jump into the content here. So, Hollywood has lied to us for years. When non-IT folks think about how companies get hacked, this is what they think about, right? Someone in a dark room, maybe in a black hoodie, doing some really complicated thing and getting access to their computer or network when they shouldn't, right? But realistically, this is far more common a way that you can get access, you would get access to someone's computer. It's exploiting some of the lack of baseline for security in IT. That's really how it happens more often than not. It's really common to have things like, MFA disabled or allowing users to run macros in Excel or things like that. And that's honestly how most companies end up getting exploited. Now, we have some examples here, some real world examples here. Colonial Pipeline was hacked by an inactive account that didn't have MFA enabled on it. The Irish Health Services had an attack that was traced back to a malicious Excel document. Lockbit ransomware gang got access to the U.S. government network via exposed RDP, and Acer was hit with ransomware via an unpatched Exchange vulnerability. Now, the reason I want to show you these and the reason we throw out that fake Excel document is because if you look at the actual recommendations that cybersecurity agencies are making for SMBs, it's really simple stuff. If you look at I look at the U.S. The English-speaking language ones because those are the ones I can read. But if you look at like the U.S. and Australia and the U.K. and Canada, the recommendations are things like take regular backups and patch your endpoints and configure and control the applications that are used in your environments and encrypt your drives and enforce MFA and use AV and enable your firewalls. And these are really simple things. But the problem is for many SMBs and even a lot of mid-market companies, those recommendations really are not being followed. So what we want to jump into is what that looks like on the endpoint. Now there is a much broader layered security view. And if you go and search for like layered approach to security, you're going to see all these different diagrams that'll jump into this. But we want to focus on the endpoint today, and really in 5 areas. So the first is endpoint visibility, because you can't manage what you can't see or measure or get visibility into. The second is device hardening. What configurations can we make to actually reduce the likelihood that you're going to be attacked? Number 3 is patch management. Everyone on this call should know what patch management is and know its importance, but we do want to cover some recommendations there and how you can use your tools more effectively. Number 4 is use those security applications. Ninja as a tool is not a security tool. We're an endpoint management tool, or a unified IT management tool that helps you deliver on the baselines of endpoint security, but you still need to use those more advanced, dedicated security solutions. The good news is a tool like Ninja can actually help you use them more effectively. And then last but not least, if everything else goes wrong, making sure you have a backup in place so that you can protect and restore your data in a worst case scenario. Excuse me. So to dive into these recommendations, and we're going to kind of go in order of that gumball looking graph I just showed you. The first one here is getting complete visibility. So visibility really is foundational to any security strategy. If you don't have visibility into your network, into your endpoints, into your devices, into your users, it's really hard to understand your security posture and to strengthen it, right? And speaking to that, it takes an average of 212 days to identify a data breach and an average of 75 days to contain it, right? And a lot of that is because of visibility or lack thereof. You don't know what's going on, and therefore it's harder to identify an issue and then resolve it. One of the primary benefits of using a unified solution like a Ninja or another endpoint management solution is by having all of your devices and all of your endpoints and all of your IT workflows in one place, you have that broader visibility, right? If you have patching in one tool and IT asset management in another and software management in another, it's really hard to see what your vulnerabilities are and to understand your security posture. And so, what we recommend here is using this unified tool to make sure that any device that touches your data and your network is discoverable and can be managed with your tool. So with Ninja, for example, you can automatically discover and deploy endpoints via Active Directory, or you can monitor all of your network devices with our network discovery tool and pull them all into one single pane of glass so you have that full, complete visibility. The next is to use those tools to identify known vulnerabilities. Now, Ninja does some of that via our patch management capability out of the box, but you can also use tools like Ninja or other tools to identify other known vulnerabilities that don't touch on patching. So, for example, if your devices don't have BitLocker enabled or FileVault enabled, you can use your tools to notify you of that and remove that vulnerability. Or another example here that we have is user account Peter Breton was locked out. If that happens over and over again or happens multiple times in a minute, that's a good indication that there's an attack going on. So you want to use these tools to identify potential vulnerabilities and then monitor for exploitation of them or the fact that they exist, and automate that so that when there are vulnerabilities in your environment. Another one here is the software log me in rescue is installed. If that's not part of your approved IT management stack, and suddenly log me in or AnyDesk or any remote access tool that you don't expect is installed, you can create an alert on that because it's potentially someone in accounting who fell for a Microsoft scam where call Microsoft support and we're going to take over your computer. So getting that complete visibility is really critical to understanding and improving your security posture. Number 2 here is hardening your endpoints. Jeff's going to spend a lot of time here, and I think he has a really good walkthrough planned here. But I do want to talk about a little bit ahead of time. 4 steps here. The first are 4 key areas here. The first is mitigating vulnerable legacies. So things like SMB version 1 or PowerShell 2.0, disabling those so that they can't be exploited. The second one is hardening the operating system. This is separate from patching, obviously, but that's part of it. But you want to do things like implement anti-exploit rules or restrict lateral movement tools or enable BitLocker or Smart Screen or Secure Boot, making sure logging's enabled. So if anything does happen, you can go back and get a record of it. Number 3 here is locking down accounts. We all know how unpredictable users are and how much of a risk they represent. And so if you can remove local admin rights from users or harden admin accounts or remove unused accounts, limit logins. There's a lot of different things you can do here to lock down those accounts and reduce the likelihood that they're exploited. And then finally, application hardening. So in this case, removing unneeded applications. So the good thing about patching is it mitigates known vulnerabilities, but removing applications can actually help you remove unknown vulnerabilities as well. So removing unneeded applications, hardening things like Office or Adobe or your browsers, doing all of those things can help you really lock down those endpoints and reduce the likelihood you're going to be attacked. Now, we have this asset here. It's you have to fill out a form, but it's a checklist to walk through. It walks through the 4 things I just talked about, as well as a couple more in depth, and gives recommendations for actually hardening those endpoints. I'll put that in chat once I've handed this off to AJ and Jeff. Number 3, I think, is patch everything. Anyone who's on this call should know how important patching is, but we do have a couple of recommendations here. So the first, it's actually not on the list here. It's not before, but in addition to anything you're actively doing to patch endpoints, you should get involved in the security community as much as you can. So doing things like following security feeds or like CVE feeds or following security vendors, but also joining peer groups like MSP Geek or MSPs R Us or WinAdmins, so that you know when critical vulnerabilities are coming through that you have to address. Next is identifying those known vulnerabilities daily. The more often you scan for patches that need to go out, the more visibility you have into your security posture. Number 2 here is actually making sure that your patching strategy doesn't include just OS patching, but also applications, drivers, and firmware. So patching really everything that you can. Once you've built that patching strategy and started identifying those vulnerabilities, making sure that you're pushing out those critical vulnerabilities immediately, right? Sorry. Remediating those critical vulnerabilities immediately is critical, and being part of those security groups and peer communities can really help you identify when those vulnerabilities come out and know that you may have to push them out immediately. Any other patches that aren't those critical security vulnerabilities, push out as fast as reasonable. Obviously, there are workflow and efficiency things that have to go on here to make sure that your end users can do what they need to do. But you do want to get as patched as you can, as quickly as you can. And then last, and this piece is often overlooked, is the validation of your patching outcome. So using the tools that you have to make sure that your patches are installed, that the vulnerabilities are remediated so that you can move forward. Second to last one here, deploy security applications. This one I think is actually a really interesting take. Security applications are a critical part of a security suite. So your AV, your next-gen AV, your EDR, your Zero Trust, your XDR. I'm sure there are a lot of other acronyms I could throw out there that are made up. But whatever it is that you're using, a tool like Ninja can help you use them more effectively. So the first is using tools in your endpoint management solution to actually identify devices that don't have your security suite installed. So for example, here are the 50 devices that don't have SentinelOne installed, let's just say. Step 2 is creating an automation around that to say, okay, any device that doesn't have SentinelOne installed, we're going to automatically try to push out and install SentinelOne on those devices. So what happens then is any new device that's added to your endpoint management solution, we identify that it doesn't have your security suite installed and then push it out automatically. And if it's successful, that's great. If for some reason it fails, you're going to get notifications and alerts that that device does not have your security suite in place, which helps you be more compliant. That's number 3 here, is monitor for compliance. If you can't automatically push your security suite for whatever reason, at a minimum, you can create those alerts and notifications and automatic ticket creations to know that, hey, Pete's endpoint does not have SentinelOne installed in this case. And then lastly, the ability to monitor for like the service going down or the application being installed or someone trying to tamper with that solution is going to be really helpful to make sure that you're staying in compliance and ensure that you're secure. Last but not least, if you can get this all to happen in a single pane of glass, that's icing on the cake. And the recommendation is obviously to do that, because if you can keep all of your alerts from performance and health and status and security in one place, it's going to make you more efficient and help you keep an eye on things. All right, last one here is back up everything. I don't actually have the statistic in front of me anymore, but something like 50 to 60% of companies that are hit with ransomware don't have a backup in place that allows them to fully restore all of their data after an attack. It's a shockingly high number, and that should terrify anyone who's listening right now, because that's one of the most important things you can do to protect yourself from data loss, is to back up everything. So you can use your endpoint management tool to identify endpoints that don't have backup on it, or who have vulnerable data that's not being saved where it should be. So let's say you're using a file sync product like OneDrive. You can use your endpoint management tool to actually identify endpoints that have people who are saving files outside of their documents folder, for example. Or you can use it to identify any devices that don't have Ninja Data Protection installed, or Veeam installed, or whatever backup solution that you're using, so that you can, again, reinforce your backup solution and make it more powerful. Number two is, make sure you are backing up all of your endpoints. Backup isn't just for servers. If you can find a solution that fits your needs, that allows you to back up your workstations, that's going to be critical to helping you restore operations quickly. The next is, the best in class recommendation is to do 3-2-1 backup, right? 3 copies of the data, 2 different media, at least 1 off site. We absolutely recommend that. Ninja's actually does something a little interesting. In the cloud, we actually have 3 copies of your data stored across multiple availability zones. So if one AWS instance goes down, you still have that data available to you, so that you can restore operations pretty much, unless all of Amazon goes down or AWS goes down, and then everyone's kind of in rough shape. But having multiple copies, having copies offsite in the worst case scenario is critical. And then last but not least, having all of your backup data in a single pane of glass is going to be critical, because one, it reduces the amount of work you have to do, right? You can keep an eye on things. If something fails, if something's going wrong, you can remediate it quickly and make that backup more effective. But also it means, when you have to go and restore, your technicians are using tools that they already know and understand, and that's going to make you more efficient and effective. So that's it for me. We're going to jump into Jeff and they actually showing this live. We're going to go over 5 examples. The first is it's going to follow the presentation that I just did. So visibility first, then with AJ, then hardening your endpoints and automating patch management with Jeff, managing your security solutions back to AJ, and then Jeff on backup. So I think we can go ahead and hand that off.
Awesome, guys. Peter, can you confirm you can see my screen and hear me as well?
Can, AJ.
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, awesome. So now let's talk about Ninja and the visibility aspect that Peter just talked about. So Ninja provides you 360-degree monitoring. What that means is it provides you very heterogeneous device support, ranging from your desktops, laptops, servers, running Windows, Mac, or Linux. Also support for your networking devices, so your routers, switches, firewalls, printers, even your VMware and Hyper-V hosts. And I'm going to show you a few examples of how you can look at security-centric information on these device types. So I'll be using a few different environments to exhibit that. First one, let's take a look at a computer here. This is a Windows 10 machine. So the first thing that you see here is when was the last OS patch scan run, and when was the last OS patch install occurred on this device. Another one would be which antivirus is installed. If I go to the details tab, among other things, we can see which all ports are open and in listening mode, TCP as well as UDP. You can also scroll down to any critical event logs, if there were any, they would show up right here above the non-critical ones. And another example would be, I'm going to jump to a new device now. So here we can see the TPM chip, if that's available and enabled, and what is the version of the TPM. Further, under details, we could look at the disk volumes, if the BitLocker is enabled, and if so, we can also see the recovery key, which Ninja escrows, and you can copy that and save it in another database if you need. One more very interesting feature is custom reporting and custom scripting. So, or custom fields and custom scripting rather. So Ninja supports this concept of custom fields, which means you can create these fields on the fly, completely customizable. They support all kinds of data types, integer, string, date, attachments, and whatnot. And there's two ways to populate those. One is, of course, manually by a technician, and second would be by a script. So you can script something, and the output can be saved in these fields. In this example I'm going to showcase, I'm going to search for a field called local admin. So I created a script that outputs all the local users on this device that belong to the administrators group, and they show up here under this field. Another thing that's worth showcasing would be we also support alerting and condition based alerting rather. And one example here is event log monitoring. So Ninja provides you these out of box templates. In this example, we have a template for event 4625, which is when a user fails to log in. So let's say, for example, someone's trying to do a brute force attack on a device. It will show up here as an alert, which can be then sent over to the customers via an email, a text, or another notification channel. So here are all the details of that event ID that just got triggered. Moving on to your VMware devices. So here is a VMware host running ESXi 6.7.0 version. I could go in here, and this is all API based monitoring now. So that device is added to the system. We can see the VM list. So it shows you every single virtual machine that exists on this host. And if the VM tools are installed, what is the memory allocated, how many virtual CPUs are allocated, and whatnot. You could select that. You could also perform all these actions directly from the Ninja console. But from a security perspective, what's important is if I go into details and go into snapshots, here you could view, create, and delete snapshots. Also, you can look at the guest tools if they're installed and what version they're on, and if they're running or not. We do the same for Hyper-V as well. Now let's switch over to networking. So Ninja has a pretty robust networking module as well. So as I mentioned before, right, any SNMP device, so routers, switches, firewalls, and all that can be added for monitoring. In this case, it's a 9300 switch. So first thing is, if I go to details, you see a port map, shows you all the interfaces on that switch. If I hover over, I can see the speed at which it's configured, the admin status, and the operational status as well. Further, we can also capture your configuration backup for Cisco and HP devices. And you can actually specify if you want to monitor the running config or the startup config for those machines. Another example would be on a different environment. So let's go to this NMS device. Netflow. So Ninja supports all popular traffic flow methodologies. So Netflow, which is Cisco specific for the most part, and also I believe Sonic Walls do have a version of that. We also support JFlow, that's Juniper specific, SFlow, which is HP and Netgear, and also IPFix. So all you need to do is configure the collector to the IP address of the Ninja NMS device in that same LAN, and this data will show up in the Ninja console automatically. So there's quite a few different views that Netflow provides. First is by conversations. So any internal IP going to any external IP, I can actually click on a specific flow and see the durations and also the contribution of that towards the total traffic for that duration. Another view is by applications, or should I rather say the ports. So I can check which all traffic was flowing over, let's say, 49700 TCP port, or I don't know what this Pando is. In this case, shows up as empty. Anyway, another view is by domains. So which all domains are your employees or your users visiting the most? So who is going to teamviewer.com? Another view is by specific endpoint. So if you want to see a specific device within the network, which all different sites it's hitting, you can also do that from here. And then there's a separation by TCP, UDP, and ICMP. And of course, lastly, the interfaces that you're monitoring for the Netflow traffic. Okay, next, moving on, SNMP traps. So we also support SNMP traps in syslog. So consider SNMP traps in syslog more like event logs on your Windows devices. They trigger when there is an event that happens on a device. Could be, an interface went down, or a VPN connection was created, or let's say even again someone tried to hack into the device. You can configure those to send out traps or syslog messages, which Ninja can again alert on. So you can configure the OIDs that you want to be alerted on in case of traps. And in case of syslog, you can get notified based upon the severities or facilities of the syslog, or even keywords that appear within a syslog message. And last but not the least is custom SNMP. So this is a pretty awesome feature, and that again opens the world of possibilities for monitoring your networking devices. So this lets you monitor any value on any SNMP based device as long as the MIB supports it. So things like monitoring your printers running out of paper, running out of ink, your power distribution unit running hot with the temperature, your Synology or QNAP hard drives failing, and whatnot. So the possibilities are endless. And that sums it up. Over to you, Jeff.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you, AJ. And hopefully everybody can see my screen here and I sound okay. Perfect. So I wanted to go ahead and start by talking and kind of emphasizing what Pete and AJ have touched on, which is there's a lot of different avenues or ways for you to protect your environment. And I'll say that to start with, one that's more important than anything else is making sure that you have the proper tools installed on your endpoints. Now, if I go into my domain controller over here on the left-hand side, I want to talk a little bit about deployment, making sure that you have your RMM tool installed on the endpoints that you're managing. Now, this is ideal for domain environments, Active Directory environments. We can come into our play button here, and then we have the ability to run an Active Directory discovery job. And this could be ad hoc, but it could also be scheduled. And I think the scheduled one is where we truly have a lot of power because this is great for ongoing deployment. We can go ahead and ensure that any devices we may have missed get captured here, and then we have the ability to then deploy to them on an automatic basis. So this ensures that you actually have the devices that you need to have inside of your tool so that you can effectively manage them. And now, another Active Directory tool that we have here is the ability to manage your Active Directory users. So if we come in and take a look at one of our users here, you're going to see some important things that we want to control in terms of user behavior. And I think that's one of the key things to take into account with any security environment is user behavior. Potentially the single most destructive possibility out there is somebody clicking on something that they shouldn't click on or not maintaining their own security. In fact, we should expect that users are not going to maintain their own security, and that needs to be enforced for them. We can see on the right-hand side the ability to force password resets, require password changes, or set account expirations, modify what groups a member happens to be a member of. So all good tools. Of course, you can do this through a domain controller directly. This just makes it easier to do within a single pane of glass. However, this is, of course, applicable only if you're in an Active Directory domain environment. It's not going to be something that you can do outside of that structure. However, with Ninja, you have other tools to get similar levels of user management. And we're going to touch on something that AJ referred to, which is custom fields within Ninja. And if I come down here, AJ had a script that listed everybody who was an admin on the account. I am just pulling every local user on this machine. But you'll notice a second box down here, a second custom field. This is where I've said who the authorized admin user accounts should be for this particular machine. And then what I have is a script running that pulls a list of every local user who has admin rights on this machine. It then compares that list against the authorized administrators that I've specified in this field. Then it writes out any of those discrepancies, if they're found, into this field right here. Now, of course, there's no local admins that we would not expect currently on this machine, but if there was, we would write that discrepancy into this custom field, and then we would act upon it. Now, what makes that happen? It's all driven by policies within Ninja. If I come into my policy, you can see that I have a variety of conditions that I'm monitoring. And while a lot of these are custom fields, you can see the one that removes an unauthorized admin right here and then deletes that user or any users that are not authorized. There are other ones in here that involve keeping track of certain services, keeping track of certain event IDs, including ones that indicate somebody might be attempting to brute force a system by failing to log in a certain number of times over a certain period of time. We'll talk more about some of these other ones, but I also wanted to talk about a different use of custom fields, which is actually populating with information that you're using on a day-to-day basis, not necessarily doing ongoing management. And that has to do with maintaining the security of the local admin service accounts that you might be using. Now, if I scroll down a little bit here, you're going to see that I have a local admin password field. This is actually a secure field that stores credentials, any text that you put inside of it safely, securely hashed out. But what I have running here on the back end is a script that regularly rotates my admin service account. Right here you can see it's MSP admin, and it regularly changes the password and then writes the new password into a custom field here. And this is a unique password, so it's not going to be the same one that we're using across every single system. If I want to see it, I can go ahead and click the I there to reveal that. I'm going to go ahead and enter in my MFA here. It does require MFA in order to click to reveal functionality that you'll see across the board within Ninja when you're using sensitive items like command line or adding a brand new script into the script library. And now I have that password available. I can go ahead and copy that and use that within a remote access session if I need to. And I know that there are some requests for this particular script, so I'm going to go ahead and paste this link into the chat right now. This is from my Ninja partner, Ben Jones. That is only available if you do have a Ninja account. So if you are interested in looking at that, you could always spin up a trial. So this is, like I said, an excellent way to ensure local admin account security. I'm only using it for one admin account in particular here, but if you have other ones, this script can easily be adapted to regularly rotate the password for them as well. Now let's move out of the realm of user behavior and let's talk about some of the other possible vulnerabilities that you're going to see. Now, there's a lot of vulnerabilities that we can remediate through scripts. One might be detecting if Internet Explorer is still installed. That I think has officially been end of life at this point by Microsoft. So we can go ahead and run a script to go ahead and disable Internet Explorer so it's no longer a potential vector. Or an outdated protocol, something like SMB1, we can go ahead and use a custom field to track the status. Is SMB1 currently enabled or disabled? And in this case, it is disabled, but I also have another script running on a recurring basis that looks for if SMB1 is in fact enabled and then remediates it by running a second script to then disable SMB1. And this can be used with PowerShell 2.0. It can really be used with any vulnerability. I'm being kind of generic here with the ones that I'm using just because they're so broadly applicable, but that doesn't mean that they're any less important. Even something like disk encryption. If we wanted to ensure that BitLocker, which AJ showed the ability to pull the recovery key earlier, but in terms of getting BitLocker set up, if we want to ensure that BitLocker is encrypting all the devices that we expect it to encrypt, we can use Ninja to enforce what I call set and forget compliance automations. We do this through our search groups here. We can identify machines that maybe have BitLocker enabled, but in this case, I'll look for any devices that have BitLocker disabled. And we'll specify by only looking for workstations here, not servers or other types of devices. And then I'll go ahead and save this as a machine that has, as a search group that has BitLocker disabled. Now this is useful for strictly informational purposes. You can always come into the search menu and then quickly load up this group to see if anybody does have BitLocker disabled. But the true value in this is in being able to automatically remediate any devices that need to have a script run across them in order to enable BitLocker. And to do that, we're going to go into administration, come down to our scheduled tasks here, and then go into our new task where we can add in our script to enable BitLocker. There are multiple examples of this in the dojo as well via that link that I posted earlier. Now I can set this to run daily, weekly, or monthly since I'm using groups. If I didn't want to use my groups, I would have more scheduling options. But in terms of targets here, I can come in and select not an individual organization, not individual devices. That would be very tedious. But use Ninja to do the heavy lifting for you in terms of identifying what machines need to run a script based on the search groups that we've created. And in this case, it's just that you have to be a workstation and you have to have BitLocker disabled. We can very easily use other criteria to limit this or even specify certain organizations or locations. Now, this is just a starting point. Like I said, I'm using some examples that are broadly applicable, so they might not necessarily seem like something that's important in your environment, but I would encourage you to take a second look and to see if maybe some of these vulnerabilities have fallen through the gaps. And again, the important part is to use the tools that you have in order to make sure that you're covered, all your bases are covered, and that you're meeting all of the compliances that you need to meet. Now, I want to go ahead and kind of switch into talking about Windows patching at this point, or just patching in general, and how you can use Ninja to effectively make sure that your machines are up to date with patching. We can come in and take a look at how patching works within Ninja, just very briefly. I know everyone's familiar with the broad processes here, but within Ninja, you can first scan, look for any new patches that might be available for your endpoints, filter that through all of your approval levels down here. What do you want to automatically approve? What do you want to automatically reject? And then what do you need to have eyes on before you push out that patch, just to have the confidence that the patch needs to be installed. So 3 different options for approval there. And then we can run the update schedule, which will download and install any patches that have been approved through Ninja. Now, of course, we have reporting built around this so that you can easily see what machines are patched, what machines maybe have not been patched. AJ was showing you that we do track things like the last patch scan or the last patch install. But if I switch back in here, you'll see that we also have a script writing to a custom field that gives us information about when the last patch was installed on this machine, when was the last reboot, is the machine healthy or is it not fully patched. And this is something, again, I'm running. If I go back into a policy here, this is something that I'm running on a recurring basis to determine if a machine has not been patched within the last 30 days. So this script here, this is what we call script result condition within Ninja. It runs a script on a recurring basis that I can specify here, and then I can specify alert output that will create an alert. And in this case, it's just that warning is somewhere in the return for this script, because I know that it outputs a warning message in case Windows has not been patched within the past 30 days. And of course, you can modify that scope to suit your own particular needs. But this is a great way to get higher visibility on any machines that are not patching recently, as you might expect. Now let's go back to the main Ninja dashboard here. I'll actually switch gears and go into our main dashboard here. Of course, we've got visibility on any failed patches, patches that haven't successfully installed, and we also have visibility on any patches we need to make a decision on, pending patches. But if we go into OS patches and then into our installed section, this will give us visibility after the fact about when was the patch installed, when was it first installed, who installed the actual patch here. You can see most of these are being done by Ninja, but of course there's going to be other Windows services. I'll say Microsoft Defender being one that self-updates itself in most cases. So you might also see that here, but you're getting visibility on the nature of these patches. Even before you make a decision about what you want to approve, you can see that you're also getting information on these patches here in terms of download size, in terms of patch age, and that might determine your approval workflows if you're going to be approving these patches right now, or maybe waiting a little bit until the patch is slightly older. Now, we also support third-party patching through Ninja. If I come into my policies, you'll see that there is a software tab over on the left-hand side here. And if I click on there, you'll see that this looks very similar to what we saw on the Windows patching side of things. We're not going to reinvent the wheel, but there is a second tab here for your products that you may want to patch. I'm going to point out something in particular here. The single largest developer patches right here, or the single largest repository for any single one developer, is going to be our Microsoft Suite down here. You can see 59 different applications that we can patch natively through Ninja, and that includes things like Exchange Server right here, the security CUs, and we can also do that for SQL Server down here. Ensuring that the baseline applications here are being kept up to date is, I think, a key cybersecurity tenet, and I would be remiss if I did not mention Office as well, ensuring that these applications are kept up to date. Uh, with Office 365, you have some more control through the Cloud Console there, and that includes things like disabling macros so that they can't run. And you can also trigger Office 365 to update itself via the command line. For some of the older versions of Office here, you can't do the cloud management, but you can still use registry modifications to ensure that macros are being disabled the way that you would want to control. And finally, again, not limited to what you're using in terms of Ninja tools, but using the native package manager that Microsoft has developed, Winget, in order to make sure that the applications are being kept up to date. If you have additional applications that are supported by Winget that aren't natively supported by Ninja's third-party patching, it's a great workaround to ensure that you are in fact keeping all those applications up to date, and Ninja can give you visibility on the specific version number of a particular piece of software here. I'll go ahead and highlight the fact that you can see Adobe Reader here, several different versions here. All the version numbers in parentheses here are different. So again, you've got that visibility in knowing what specific versions are installed on your computer or computers and when they need to be updated. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to AJ to give us a little bit more information on different antivirus and cybersecurity solutions.
Sure thing. Happy to. So again, can you confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So Ninja offers a few different security solutions. We have WebRoot, we have Bitdefender SDK, which offers you just the anti-malware piece, and then there's a brand new option that's joining those. It's Bitdefender Gravity Zone. There's going to be one fully integrated single pane of glass integration. I would call this power with simplicity because we've only brought over the things that would matter from an RMM perspective, namely deployment and management after the fact. So I just want to give you guys a sneak peek. It's in closed beta right now. The goal is to make sure like all the customers who are using it right now, are find all the bugs that come up, and then we can work on those, and then we open that to the broader audience. So first piece here would be enablement. So if you go into administration, go into apps, uh, and if you go to add apps, you'll see a tile for Gravity Zone. In my case, it's already added. So once you add it here, you enable that, and it's going to prompt you to pick the license type, and there's two different SKUs we offer, standard versus full. So you can talk to your account team what those SKUs mean. We will be happy to cover that in detail. And once you choose a license type, you see the screen. So this gives you two hyperlinks, one to go to the console, the Gravity Zone console that is, and the other one is to go to the Gravity Zone policy screen. So this is a single sign-on link. If I click it, it's going to warn you, it's going to go outside of Ninja, and it will create a technician on the fly for you, assuming you have the access to log into the Gravity Zone console. Only then you will even see those hyperlinks in the first place. But yes, you click here and you will be taken to the Gravity Zone console. So anyway, next step would be going into the policies. So let's go into the policy, go into the AV tab, and pick Gravity Zone. So as you can see, the policy piece is very light, right? Unlike Bitdefender SDK, wherein we had all the options to scan or set the scan schedule, the update schedule, and whatnot, and even like quarantine exclusions. Here, we just focus on the deployment piece. So if another AV is recognized, we can take no action, which means it will not install the Gravity Zone agent, or it will proceed with the installation anyway. So that's one aspect. And the other aspect is post-install reboot. If the machine requires that, you can suppress that, or you can automatically reboot or notify the user and then reboot. So once you save this, it will push out the Gravity Zone Bootstrap installer on all those devices. And let's close this and take a look at a device and see what we see. So first thing, under settings, there'll be a new tile for Gravity Zone. Gives you a hyperlink to that same device in the Gravity Zone console, shows you the license type, and also all the modules that are installed on this device. Further, which policy in the Gravity Zone console is this device mapped to? You can go to the play button, run a quick scan or full scan or a memory scan. And if there were any threats found, they will show up right here at the bottom in the health status. And also, actually, let's go back to the policy. Under activities, we've added all these device activities for the Gravity Zone component. So a scan completed, a threat was blocked, or threat was cleaned, a threat was deleted from the quarantine, and all these, they can be notified on using the regular notifications, or also if you have the notification channels turned on, you could get notified via Slack, PagerDuty, Microsoft Teams, or even webhooks if you configure those. And last piece here is under the dashboard, if there were any active threats globally, or even actually we have the same threats dashboard at the org level as well, but you'll see them here, and you can either restore them, restore or add an exception, or lastly, delete that threat outright from the device. And that goes over this feature at a high level. Now, I'm sure there'll be a question like, when can we play this, right? Or play with this or use this feature. So this is in closed beta. Once there's actually a couple of bugs that we need to fix. I would say by the month end, we should be able to get that to a few more customers and then gradually make that an open beta early to mid next month. And then again, based upon the feedback and if we find more bugs, we'll work towards getting that feature in GA. The best thing for you guys to know would be this is meant for net new Gravity Zone customers only, because we spawn a new Gravity Zone console as a part of this installation. So first phase of customers would be, or the best suited ones would be who are not using Gravity Zone today. Phase 2 that's coming down the line soon would be where you can use your Ninja resold Gravity Zone console and merge that into the single pane of glass view. And that covers the high level. Back to you, Peter.
I think it's for
Yeah,
backup.
I think I'm going to go
Thank
ahead
you,
and
AJ.
talk a little bit about backup here. Let me go ahead
there
and
you go.
share my screen.
Thanks, Jeff. Sorry about that.
No worries. Thanks, AJ. So I'll talk just very briefly about backup so that we have some more time to take questions. But I did want to give a better view on two things, one of which is retention. Within Ninja Backup, you get to define your own retention, how much data that you want to retain for any of these backups. Doesn't matter if it's our file and folder document backup or our image backup. You can see here we can define individual restore points. So in this context, we would have a backup job run every single day, and that would give us 30 different restore points for that image before we'd start to trim them out to conserve space. And of course, you can use these in conjunction with each other to make sure that you're capturing all the data that you think you're capturing. But if we close out of here and then go look at what the restore process looks like, I want to show two things. One of which is the ability to easily restore out of your files and folders here. If I click into one of these backup plans, I can able to browse the directory, and then if I select a file here, I get the option to either download to my own local machine or to restore to one of my managed devices that's in the same organization that has backup enabled. So I can very easily restore something here to another PC. I can overwrite the file name conflicts, and then I can choose the revision that I want here. And this is important because maybe if you suffer an attack, there's a ransomware infection, it's able to be remediated. You can then restore back prior to the infection. So we can go and use a file, maybe not from yesterday or the day before, but we can go all the way back to last week or any of the other restore points that we've defined. And that carries over into the image component as well. So if we look at an image, you can see all the different restore points that you have here. You have the option to download that image. You could spin it up as a VM, or you could do a bare metal restore. But you also have the ability to click into any of these images right here, mount the drive as a volume in the cloud, and then we can actually cherry pick and pull individual files, individual folders out of this image. So just again, a single pane of glass, having the visibility over when backups are occurring, the control to easily restore them, and then we can come in here, download an individual file or folder. We are not limited to individual files. We could also pick an entire user profile, for example, and then download that to our machine. But this gives you the extra level of protection that, as Pete mentioned at the top of the call, is absolutely key. And speaking of Pete, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to him.
Thank you so much for that record run through of backup. We have one last thing to do, and that's to give away our gift card. Christine, if you can hop on and announce our winner, that would be great.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Pete. Hey, everyone. I hope we're enjoying the webinar so far. I'm here for the fun stuff, so I'm going to announce the $100 gift card winner. So if we can all pop in the chat and say a huge congratulations to Matt Huff. Congratulations, Matt. Be on the lookout for an email from me, and I'll get that out to you.
Congrats, Matt. Okay, I think we can jump into some questions here. The first one that came up here is from James Monson. He's asking about plan support for Microsoft Defender, Defender for Business. I think the short answer is we don't have that in active development. It's on product board. You can vote for it. Tell us how important it is to you. But Jeff, you may have a workaround that you can share about monitoring for Microsoft Defender via the event log.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is an event ID that does trigger whenever Defender detects a threat. We've got that information in our dojo. I would highly recommend enabling that if you're using Defender as your primary AV source. But then there are also a lot of really good PowerShell commandlets that you can use in order to initiate scans, to take action, to restore files from quarantine, to purge files from quarantine. So it is very possible to manage Defender through Ninja using some of those different methods, PowerShell and event IDs. And then I would also point out that Ninja does natively report on Windows Security Center, which comes standard on Windows workstations. That gives you visibility on when you have recent check-ins for updates. If Defender is turned on or off, that is available at the individual device level, but it's also available within our reporting. So you can view on a per organization basis what workstations are protected as we detect through Windows Security Center. And that also displays any other AVs that register within Windows Security Center as well.
Actually, I'm going to share my screen just for a second here. And Jeff, you can tell me if I'm wrong here. So if you go to the Microsoft website, you can see that Microsoft Defender does write to the event log, and it'll tell you the path here, right? So it's under Windows Defender, and it actually gives you the event ID. So if you monitored for this source, Windows Defender, I think this source, Windows Defender, and then the event ID for, where is it? And failed, malware detected, 1006. I'm sure there's a bunch more you want to go through here. That could create an alert natively in Ninja that you could then use to alert, create tickets, and proactively manage. The second one here, second question we have is, can you scan Azure AD bound computers? We have an AD server in Azure.
So the answer would be, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
No, go ahead, AJ. You probably might know more about future plans for this.
No. For now, so it's we support hybrid AD environments wherein you have a domain controller that syncs up with the cloud-based server. Unfortunately, if you're purely cloud-based AD, if you have a purely cloud-based deployment, it will not work. You do need the local server for us to be able to push out the agent to those devices in the same LAN. Jeff, you can add more to it if I miss something. Keep me honest.
No, you kind of Azure AD does work differently than regular AD. They're not, even though they have AD in the name there, they are, I would say, very different in terms of operation. So we do require the on-prem DC in order to facilitate the deployment.
Thank you guys so much. I only see one last question here. If you do have any other questions, I think we have time for one more after this. But a question here from Alessandro. Will backup be able to run hourly in the future? I don't know if anyone has any insights there.
Well, I can say that with our file and folder backups, you do have the ability to run those on an interval basis. And that includes not just hours, but minutes. But image backup, I do believe, is limited to running daily at maximum. and there's no shorter interval than that. I can't speak to any future plans simply because I'm not really aware. But I think that obviously the amount of space that an image backup is going to take up makes sort of hourly image backups not always feasible. AJ, any color to add there on that?
I would say, I mean, yeah, no, I think you summed it up perfectly. Yeah, I would say we can, if you have any specific requests around that, like if you want more aggressive scheduling, let us know the specifics and we'll be more than happy to add that to the roadmap.
Awesome. Two last questions here. One, I think this is aimed at you, Jeff. Here, it's from Aaron. With the endpoint patch detections, would it be useful for 0-day issues, or does it rely on the developer releasing a new version first?
I mean, I would say typically a 0-day is going to be released by the developer, but yeah, there is, I would say, somewhat of a delay with our integration with third-party patching between when a patch might be released by the main developer. Let's just use Google Chrome as an example. When Google releases an update for Chrome versus when Ninja is going to detect that. So there may very well be a delay there, and that's why I emphasize other options for that, like Winget, like Chocolatey. There are a lot of really good avenues there to ensure that you are being patched, and it's good to have other options there for sure.
Awesome. And then AJ, I think we can wrap up with one for you so we can share the love around. Question from Glenn. Can you integrate network monitoring with Fortinet or really any device that's not Cisco?
Absolutely. So Ninja Network Monitoring is vendor agnostic. We can monitor any SNMP device on the planet as long as that supports the standard MIB2 protocol. So try adding your Fortinet. From my past experience, I remember Fortinet's being pretty close to the Cisco MIBs. So most of the data should show up. And for the data that does not show up, you can use our custom SNMP feature to monitor any non-standard values as well.
Awesome. And if you don't have NMS in your environment, you'd need to reach out to your account manager and actually have them turn that on for you. But you should be able to roll it from there. And Glenn, that's what I like to hear. You want to hire NinjaOne. I like it. I think with that, I think we can wrap up. I don't see any other questions. So AJ, thank you so much for joining us. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us and doing all the heavy lifting between the two of you. Everyone on the call, thank you so much for joining us, listening to us, and asking your questions. We hope you learned something from this, and I hope everyone has a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.